For podium, you have comments to make under public comment section. Jen, please read the first slide.
Just for the record, I want to note that Mr. Escabel is on Zoom. Number 8, ordinance second reading, defining the terms and conditions of employment for sworn officers of the Cheyenne Police Department for fiscal year 2023 to 2024.
Staff report, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Finance Committee, Captain David Janey, Cheyenne Police Department. What you have before you is the newest ordinance defining the terms and conditions for officers for fiscal year 23-24. This is something we redo every year. The only change in here is the minimum numbers of hours overtime for court callouts. It was 1 hour. The Employee Association requested we change it to 2. I did some research on it and very few of the court overtime inputs in our system were less than 2 hours anyway. So it'll have very little fiscal impact on the police department, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Captain James. Any questions from committee?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, through you. Captain James, can you just, on page, exhibit C, page 1, it talks about specialty call pay plan schedule. And I was just curious as I was reading through this, if you can tell us how many of each of these individuals we have, or people that are trained in each one of these areas. And then if we have any people that have multiple trainings where they would be paid this on a monthly basis as a cumulative amount.
I cannot tell you how many for each, but I can get that together and get it sent to you. And we do have a few, but not very many. Most of the ones that are multiples are the field training officers. So they're a field training officer and they're a canine handler, or, they wouldn't be field training and detectives because detective does not do field training. But we do have a few, but they're like I say, mostly the field training officers will carry 2.
Okay. Yeah, if you could get that number, I'm just curious. If, people are, if that's really, they're taking advantage of that extra pay and getting that training so that we can have a well-trained force.
Yeah. And Mr. Chairman, through you, these are not specifically just training. These are people who are actually on call for these sort of things. So we have a lot of people who are trained in specific things that do not receive the specialty pay because they're not actually on call for those things. But I can have Lynn Sherman, she has it all easily accessible and we can get that to you.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from committee? I'd like to also note for the record real quick that we are missing Mr. Roybal today, and Mr. Laybourne has graciously offered to pinch hit for him today. So thank you, sir, for being here. There are no other questions from committee. Comments from the public? Hearing no comments, do I have a motion?
I would so move to approve.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Comments from committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of the ordinance on second reading, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 15, resolution expressing the support of the governing body to request the state of Wyoming to reconsider the 2022 House Bill 0148, creating a special animal control district.
Staff report, please.
Yes, sir. Richard Johnson, 612 McGovern Avenue. Basically what this entails is when we were dealing with the animal shelter contract earlier this year, Commissioner Malm and I had reached out to Representative Zwanitzer in regards to a 2022 piece of legislation that he had drafted by the LSO. That did not actually make it outside of committee, and I can't really speculate on hearsay because that's all I've really heard is gossip is why it did not make it outside of committee. But it was, I think, alluded to something with Representative Zwanitzer's residency at the time that they did not pull it out to hear it on the floor. What this entails, after conversations with Commissioner Malm and Representative Zwanitzer, is the creation of an animal district, meaning each specific county of the 23 could designate, an election where they would kind of how we do it on council, where the first, certain people would be for a certain amount of time, and then the other one would have like 2-year cycles. So it would actually have tiers. So you have the experience of of people that have been on there and the people that come on board after 2 years. But everybody on the initial election, all 6 of them would be the ones that move forward. So what this actually does in regards to the city of Cheyenne is this offers the opportunity to assess a mill that would be approved by the county commissioners that would be ran through the county treasurer to divvy out funds. So the animal shelter, as their own independent entity, could request to sign an MOU with the animal district if it was created. And then the city of Cheyenne, doing their own animal control, could set up an MOU with the animal district. Therefore, it would the reason Commissioner Mom and I looked at this is it would offset some of the expenditures that come through the city and county in regards to what we pay for the animal shelter, because there would be that mill established and therefore additional revenues would come in. After talking with Chairman Zwanitzer, with the creation of this animal district, it would actually show transparency because the mills could obviously be calculated. The board itself would have fundraising powers, but he believes that it would actually create a view of transparency on how much monies were allocated through the county to the city as well as to the animal shelters directly. Kind of as an offshoot, there is mentions in this because in the state of Wyoming, this would go back through the legislature again. It has to deal with livestock. Representative Zwanitzer told me that one of the impetuses of this throughout the state was the state last year in 2022 spent about $4 million in the extermination of coyotes in regards to attacking livestock. From my experience with the Highway Patrol, typically you would call out livestock coordinators and things to round up livestock that got outside of their fences and in the road. So these would could offset any kind of livestock issues that would come through the state as well. But in regards to the city, it would be individual MOUs where they would set up those contracts to find out how much was going to be allocated out of this mill to assist us in our animal control and animal shelter contracts. And I will do my best to answer any questions in regards to any specifics as I can give them to them.
Thank you for that. I think Dr. Aldrich has a question. I have a question. You mentioned that they would get a mill. So have you and Commissioner Mom done an estimate on approximately how much that might save the city as far as expenditures with the contract? Because it's quite expensive.
At this time, no, we have not, because this is a resolution to ask the legislature to kind of reopen this. And so as we, it was looked at, because in this case, I missed the WHAM deadline, even though that's included in the last whereas. But when I'm talking with Representative Zwanitzer, this is something that he wants to, with this resolution, that he feels he'll at least have a little more teeth to bring it forward to pitch to the rural legislators to get this done, because each county is going to be a case by case difference. Some of these counties don't even have they don't have animal shelters and or animal control services. And so it creates the language has it where they can create those animal control and animal sheltering if not needed. With us specifically, due to the size of our county and with the amount of growth, it would be kind of hard to speculate in regards to, I believe it says in this 1 mill, that would go towards that, but nothing calculated because of our estimated growth in Laramie County on, with the property going through. So no, Gunnar and I pretty much took Dan for what his language stated at the time. And then those numbers, once calculated, if approved through the legislature, would be done through, the county themselves. And then it would be independent MOUs in regards to what the city would do.
Okay. Dr. Aldrich?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman White. So I had several questions. The first one is, have we had an opportunity to talk to our animal control office to see if they were in support of this?
No, we have not. The reason that I think Director Fountain would support this is because of the revenue streams that could be administered through the mill. Because at this time, as per what it states in the resolution, the animal control under Director Fountain or his designee or, whoever happens to take on animal control after Director Fountain is maybe no longer with us, then at that point, they would determine, through their contract exactly what they were eligible for. So it's another revenue stream that I could see that Eric and any existing council and mayor would support, because we could pull these additional funds out of the mill to offset our costs. But it's like kind of segueing off of Jeff's question, if we've calculated exactly how much money. No, we have not. but it is an additional revenue stream that Dan believes has a lot more transparency issues in regards to transfer of funds, not only from the county to the city, but also to the animal shelter itself.
As a follow-up question to that, I see that in the first whereas, it does require a vote of the electors to implement the tax. So this would not be automatically done. Looks like from reading this that the county would have to take it before the voters to vote on whether to establish this animal control district or not. Then there would be an additional election, I would guess, that would elect the 6 directors for the initial board. I'm just, one of my thoughts about this is that as we think about where this would fall with timing, it might be something that would be happening at the same time we were trying to do our specific purpose optional tax, our spot tax. Is there, I guess the other, I'm really, I'm intrigued by the idea, but I'm hesitant because I think there's just so many unknowns. And I think that that's the piece that I'm really struggling with, as well as I'm really kind of, I'm trying to wrap my head around us being able to tell the legislature or WHAM. I mean, obviously we're members of WHAM and so we can take things through their process, but I would sure be an unhappy camper if the legislature came to us and tried to put through resolutions to force our hand to do things. So
Actually, they currently do that. They're called state statute. My hand is forced every single day. But it's to kind of answer your inquiries. This does, because of the amount of variables, because it has not been heard by the legislature. So you are correct. This is the reason I'm doing this now in 2023 is to basically for Dan to start doing his efforts with other legislators to get this, you know, the support he needs. So at the end of the budget session in 2024, that this can actually be put on as an interim topic to go through the regular committees that you would see throughout 2024, so that it could be put forth on the general session in 2025. Your timing is correct in regards to the 6 penny additional tax, but that's what Gunnar and I kind of looked at, is because if this actually passes the legislature in 2025, and then we have our spot tax, you know, sometime within, say, late 2025, typically it'll be around November of that. I know we've had other spot taxes that have happened in different months, but at that time we could also have, you know, an idea of the amount that have been collected by the mills. Granted, sometimes the timeline, you know, I know it was written in the contract that we would look through the spot tax, you know, as additional funding in the future that the animal shelter would have to do their own promotional needs for. So as you are correct in stating that with the electors having to actually make the proposition for a tax that would then be approved by the county, then it would, you know, have that other vote. You know, to save money and expediency on that, you could also have, you know, I've never seen a spot tax, actually anything but the spot tax. But I know that in past elections that I've worked with, that they always try to incorporate other items on there because it saves us money, because we do actually pay for those elections. So if there was the spot 6 penny tax for future endeavors that we all decide that are important to us, as well as a secondary item that the electorate could vote on in that section, then this would be a great time to do that. And that might be in, you know, late 2025. But once again, this is just a resolution asking the legislature to reopen the conversation.
I have a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
A follow-up question, Chairman White, through you. Do you anticipate, and I know it's hard to know, but do you think that enough money would be raised through that 1 mill that it would eliminate the need for us to budget anything for animal control or to the animal shelter?
That would be the hope, but I would say no, strictly on the premise that as we saw with contract negotiations take place this year, and the increase that even that we did from the 850 to 900, and then the animal shelter's request of, you know, I think it was 1.25 up to 1.7 million. If those numbers continue to increase, my just, you know, guessing, I would say no, that it would not cover the entire amount.
So it could be possible that we could have this on the ballot when we had the spot tax on there possibly, and we could end up losing the spot tax as well as this not being passed, and we would be in a worse situation than what we currently are.
Hypothetically, no, strictly because of the amount of revenue that would be requested by the animal shelter for, say, that specific 4-year period that most spot taxes go for. Just when I've sat through many of the spot the spot creation meetings, is the amount that would be requested by the animal shelter for that 4-year period would most likely be in excess of what we would classify as a low dollar amount, that it would be a standalone tax. And so the voters would basically have the two options to see if, they wanted to approve the mill tax, for animal control and animal shelter, and then also the 6 penny monies for the animal shelter. So yes, it just depends on how educated the voters are on their decision making. If they see two different specific animal type taxes included on there, as long as the marketing's done correctly and the education's done, then yes, they could be marketed as two different entities.
Yeah, I'm really, quite honestly, just concerned about people being tax weary and it being a detractor from our usual spot tax. So my only concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee? Mr. Laybourne.
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to follow this process, so I have several questions that I hope I can get some sort of answer to. Did I understand you correctly, President Johnson, that you had not talked to our animal control officer about this?
That is correct.
And did I also hear you say you hadn't run the numbers and didn't have some sort of a calculation as to this possible effect on our participation in animal control as a city?
That is correct.
Well, I think that's enough to say that this isn't a prime time idea. And I'm not sure if you can answer this question, but maybe someone else can. I'm familiar with our items that we bring forward to the Association of Municipalities for their support on a statewide basis and communication as to lobbying. But I can't recall another time that there was ever a resolution of this nature suggesting that we supported some individual piece of legislation like this. Can you give me an example of this ever happening before?
Yes, one, it didn't have the financial implications, but we did do a resolution of support for a non-discrimination statute. I believe that was in 2016 where we did present that resolution to the state legislature, voicing our support for further and basically investigation and reopening of that conversation.
And how did that come out?
It actually was the closest that it had ever come to passing the state legislature in 2016. So it was actually very, very fruitful. It was something that many lobbyists were able to take because we were not the only city that did that. There were other municipalities across the state of Wyoming that had also voiced their support through resolutions. And so it was actually very, very favorable. I can't quote the exact numbers, but it was very, very close in regards to that vote.
Mr. Chairman? It's obvious that this is not ready for prime time and has so many questions that need to be answered. This is quite a shift from anything that I'm familiar with us ever doing in regard to animal control and our responsibilities. And without any figures and without communication with the responsible party, obviously, this is I think you'd say it's winging it. And I would say that in my experience with the Wyoming legislature and the upcoming budget session, Mr. Johnson, are you believing that this would possibly come before the budget session?
No, that is incorrect.
I'd ask you a question.
Will it come
He's
before?
trying to answer that question.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Will it come
Mr.
in front of the
Johnson.
budget session? No.
So obviously this is premature, and if this concept needs more work, certainly that can happen. I'd like to know what our current relationship thinks about this and how it might affect these matters. And when you're talking about a statewide effort with the incredible variety we have in our counties and their funding mechanisms and their responsibilities, I think that it's clear that it's an idea that deserves further consideration, but not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee? Does Mr. Escabel have his hand? No, nope. Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Please stand by.
Okay.
As there are no other questions from committee, comments or questions from the public? Okay. Mr. Fountain has his hand up. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council members, I thank you for your time and consideration of looking at this today as well. I have had a chance to look at the House bill. I was aware of it previous to Councilman Johnson bringing it forward as well. But I think what we're trying to do, I think, or what I believe Mr. Johnson is trying to do is have a conversation to begin for us to look for ways to fund animal control and animal sheltering services as we go forward. There's a little bit of complexity with it in asking us to look at a bill that was not successful at going forward for whatever reason with our legislature. But we are aware that we do have a situation where the funding is going to only go up. And I think that for us with animal control services, we've been able to keep our operation values at a consistent level, but at the same time, we are seeing some needs that are coming down the pipe, aging of our vehicles, et cetera. We are on that fifth penny. You are correct in that conversation, and that we are able to collect some revenue there to replace those, but not at the swift market rates of vehicles, et cetera, that we're seeing. So we won't be able to continue at the rate we are collecting that on the current ballot. The piece of conversation I think that's super important is understanding for us as a municipality, we are able to provide animal control services to a community like ours, and to partner with Laramie County to support those outside lying communities as well. Statewide, there is some complication. There is complications in terms of animal control services, sheltering services, and we currently have something in place that is a high dollar value expense. Those places don't even have that and have not had the opportunity to establish that. So I do like some of the things that are in the bill. I think it would take some work for us to look at, but we would be in support of something like this going forward, specifically to look at how we can provide those services back to this community and forwarding that to other communities, the same opportunity as well. So I would stand for questions, but we would support that at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Fountain.
Mr. Chairman, we also have Mayor Collins with his hand raised.
Okay, we're going to go to Mayor Collins. Go ahead, sir. Hope you're feeling better.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am on my last day of COVID jail, so hopefully tomorrow they'll let me out. But, this has been something we've been talking about for a couple of years now, and that is how do we in the future pay for the increasing cost of animal control, animal sheltering, animal welfare in the community. When we talked about this a year ago, I believe one mill would raise about $2 million in Laramie County. And so that's a significant dollar amount that could make a difference. We spend a year on animal control services generally. We're going to spend as a community $800,000, $900,000 and or $850,000, $900,000 on animal sheltering. And we know that the animal shelters told us that number is the bare minimum that they need just to pay the bills. And so those numbers are going up. And so we were looking for ways to find a different funding source to pay for these services. And if we could create a district and do it collaboratively with the county, then we would be able to pay for a lot of those services and take the pressure off of our general fund. And so that is the genesis of this idea. The reality is when we try to do the bar and grill license, it took us 3 times to get it to the legislature. Sometimes it just takes a while to work with the legislature, get them to understand where we're coming from. The first time, I think it was the same results that you guys have. It's like, this doesn't make sense. And so taking some time and educating, so getting out early on this project seemed to make sense. Going to the summer conference this summer, to WHAM, having this resolution in hand so that we can ask for statewide support so that in 2025 we can work to get this passed, I think is really looking forward rather than last minute. And so I would encourage support of the concept Obviously, the devils are in the details, but I think this is something we definitely should look at going into the future to help us be able to pay for not only the current costs, but also how can we control the number of animals we have, those different kinds of programs to be able to have a healthier animal population. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other public comment? Mr. Laybourne, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to absorb this and figure out how it might occur. I think that in the discussion that I observed and participated in regard to our current animal shelter and animal services situation, the idea was that we would continue with the contract that we recently approved and then look at possibly putting it on the sixth penny ballot. So I've heard some discussion here that maybe someone can educate me about. Did I hear that there was some thought of putting this district on the same ballot as a sixth penny? Or did I hear that wrong?
Mr. Johnson, can you clarify that?
That is always potentially an option, but like the mayor has alluded to and Director Fountain, it all depends on timing and the passage of the legislative bill. So that is a hypothetical at best. If that was just a correlation that Dr. Aldrich made, if they could potentially end up on the same ballot, the answer, of course, is yes, they could. The other answer is no, they could not.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Laybourne.
a lot of hypotheticals here and a lot of hypotheticals that I guess we'll see how they come to fruition, and recognizing the challenges we just went through with the whole question of animal services and control. Seems like there's some support here, and but I don't believe that this is ready for prime time. And as far as I know, no bill filed, we didn't get a copy of the bill that was filed, so we can review that. So again, I just think there's a lot of questions here that in a area that I think we all know is can become quite heated and controversial. And so I'm a no.
Thank you, sir. There are no other comments from the public. Do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve.
It's been moved to approve. Is there a second? As there is no second, that resolution fails. Next item.
Item number 19C, contract between the City of Cheyenne, Laramie County Sheriff's Office, and Laramie County for housing prisoners at the Laramie County Detention Center.
Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Captain David James, Cheyenne Police Department. This is another contract that we do every year between the city and the county as far as detention services with the jail. Our last contract was 2 years. This one we've shrunk back down to a single year as the jail is looking at doing some federal contracts and may be able to give us a reduced price next year. So we hope to get a reduced price next year. The only thing different in this from the previous contract is we changed the definition of city prisoner as to someone being held solely on municipal charges. In the past, if someone was held on, say, aggravated assault and had a misdemeanor municipal warrant, the jail would still charge us half of their incarceration rate. This new administration has recognized that they're being held on aggravated assault. The misdemeanor municipal charge is pretty irrelevant compared to that. And so they are no longer going to charge us for that, because now a city prisoner is someone being held solely on city charges. So we anticipate some savings with this and appreciate their help. The new Chief Deputy Perry Rockvam has been very helpful at the jail, and we appreciate all they've done for us.
Thank you. Questions from the committee?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Aldrich.
Chairman White, through you. So I don't remember when we've approved this in previous years that item number 9 was included, which is the possibility for city prisoners to serve as inmate laborers. Has that always been a part of this contract or this MOU?
I would have to check the old one to see. We worked on this and this is one thing that the jail has never done, but they are looking at this year. So that may have been something that they added. As far as I know, it's always been in there that inmates can serve. But that one I'm not for sure on.
Well, I found it really interesting that the county, it says the county shall make said inmate laborers available to the city to perform various responsibilities in the detention center or on city properties. So I'm assuming that that would mean like our city parks and different areas that we would need, the greenway, places that we could use litter or whatever.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you, speaking with with Mr. Rockvam and with the new sheriff, that is one of their plans is they hope to be able to use inmate labor for cleaning stuff up as well as graffiti abatement and other things as that goes.
Great. The other question I had was, I also noticed that in this agreement that if they're full, then obviously they can't take our prisoners. And so I'm assuming that we would still continue to contract or have an MOU, like for instance, with Platte County.
That's correct. Our MOU with Platte County does not have an expiration date. And so we still, and in fact, we will still move our prisoners. If someone's sentenced to more than a week, 7 days, we still move them to Platte County because Platte County charges $55 a night as opposed to $120 a night here in Laramie County.
That was going to be my next question. Having had students who have done time up there, they really enjoyed Wheatland actually and loved the food there and got a lot of attention. So maybe not an incentive we want to encourage. So thanks.
Other questions from committee? Hearing none, comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I would move to approve.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Laybourne.
so this idea of using, I guess, would it be fair to call them trustees to actually leave the facility and go do work somewhere? Would that be under the supervision of the sheriff without a fiscal commitment from the city?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you, this is, again, it's a new idea that the sheriff is having. They've had inmate laborers in the past, but the jail has not done it in my entire career, as far as I can remember, in the last 20 years. So this would be something that the jail would have to establish and the county would have to set up with their contracts and those sort of things. So it would all be under the county at that point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this contract, please signify by saying aye.
I,
Oh, I didn't think you had a motion yet.
Yes, we did have a motion, Mr. Escabel.
Okay, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you, sir. No one's opposed. That item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 19D, professional services agreement between the City of Cheyenne, Cheyenne Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, and Stan Tech Consulting Services Incorporated for the Safe Routes to School Plan Update.
Staff report.
Good afternoon. Jenny Stevens is Senior Transportation Planner with the Cheyenne MPO. The Cheyenne MPO was recently awarded a TAP grant through YDOT to perform a Safe Routes to School Plan update. Our last plan was done in 2010. This plan will be much more comprehensive and include elementary, junior high, high, and charter schools within the MPO boundary, so those publicly funded schools. A request for proposal was put out and we interviewed a number of consultants. Stantec Consulting Services was selected as the best qualified from those proposals and interviews. So this item before you is a professional services agreement with Stantec Consulting Services to have extensive public outreach, a safety audit, existing barriers identified, identifying solutions, as well as ultimately developing an action plan moving forward as a guiding force for implementation. So this contract is not to exceed $282,523.62. And I stand for questions.
Thanks, Jenny. Stand by. Questions for Ms. Stevens, Mr. Laybourne?
Yes, this is wonderful program for us to have better ability to really take a look at a number of issues that certainly are of concern. How long do you think it's going to take for this cycle to occur?
So the consultant contract that we developed it and finalized it roughly about a month ago before we submitted it. I think the intent for this is to be, I'm looking back at the schedule now. The intent is to have everything completed by roughly September of next year. So just a little over a year. That may be 1 or 2 months after that, depending on timing of how we can get started here. After speaking with the consultant, our plan is to get started right away. So once this contract hopefully gets approval, we will submit it to YDOT local government, who issues that TAP grant, to get their notice to proceed. And once we have all signatures in that notice to proceed, we will hit the ground running with that consultant and start making progress right away.
Mr. Chairman, and so is the school district's safety committee a partner in all of this?
Yes, so I have had the opportunity to work with a traffic safety committee, kind of get them involved in and what this plan is, and have had been extensively in contact with Laramie County School District 1 to make sure that they're in the loop. They've had the opportunity to, so they reviewed the request for proposals. They've been privy to all of the proposals. So they've been involved, and we hope to keep them involved because they're a big player.
Thank you. Dr. Aldridge?
Chairman White, through you. So the $282,523.62 is completely covered by the TAP grant.
So let me give a slight breakdown of the funding in general. It's a little bit confusing. So the TAP grant federal funding through YDOT is $250,000. That requires a 9.51% match. Since the MPO is federally funded, we can't fund federal to match federal. So we had to go outside and get private funding. Those private funding, we have 2 sources of private funding through Cheyenne Regional Medical Center. So they have a Safe Kids program that wants to support this, as well as the Formac Nonprofit Foundation. So that matches, so that's a little over $13,000 per private match, that which will match that $250,000 for that original TAP grant application. And then thankfully, we received notice from YDOT that they will be giving us some additional YDOT funds with no match requirement. So that's the additional $6,250. So all of those different sources add up to that 282. And you're correct. So it's no MPO funds, it's no city funds, it's no county funds. These are all through the federal TAP grant, YDOT funds, and private match.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you participating with the MAC Foundation and with other entities to make up that difference. A lot of times we have that spelled out in the agreement, and it wasn't spelled out in this. So that's why I asked that question. The other comment I had was that I noticed that they're going to conduct a parent survey digitally and in paper format, which I also appreciated. And they're having public meetings, public comments for parents to be able to participate. I did note that you are in this agreement that it says that they're going to use the LCSD Chronicles, which no longer exist.
Okay.
So that may be something that you just want to be aware of, that they've ended that publication and they're not doing that any longer. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aldridge. Any other questions for Ms. Stevens? Comments from the public? Do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $282,523.62.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from committee? Hearing none. Just wanted to say, Ms. Stevens, this is a very important project. I think all of council recognizes really specifically after what happened with Mac, that this must be a priority ongoing and we must never get complacent with it. So all the best to you on that. Hearing none. All those in favor of this professional services agreement, please signify by saying aye.
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 No one's opposed. That item moves forward. Next item.
Number 19C, contract between the City of Cheyenne, Office of Youth Alternatives and Laramie County for Youth Crisis Shelter Services.
Staff report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and council members. Jay Sullivan, the Director of Youth Alternatives. The item before the committee this morning is an existing contract that we have with the county to provide counseling services and screening services for youth being placed at the crisis center. Once again, the amount of this is $86,000. It'll be revenue to the city to cover the expenses associated with those services. This was formerly a contract that we had with the Joint Powers Board and has been taken over by the county. At this point, I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions for Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Aldrich?
Chairman White, through you. I just was noting in the contract for services agreement under section 4, B and C, where it says a contractor shall provide with their monthly invoice a report of the number of juveniles served during the month and cumulatively by the contractor services. And then C, a report within 7 days at the conclusion of each month with a narrative description of significant issues and opportunities, the number of youth served by these services and the total number of contact hours provided by each program during the previous month. I'm assuming that we haven't seen these because this contract was previously with the Joint Powers Board. Is that perhaps why we've never seen one of these reports? And if these reports are being filed, if we could get copies for the council members.
Excuse me just one moment.
What did he say?
He said, excuse me.
Sorry, we appear to have a weather alert going on here. Mr. Chairman, through you, the invoices and reports have been sent directly to the county or to the Joint Powers Board, but we'd be glad to provide a copy of that to the council members if you'd so wish.
I think that would be certainly welcomed. Any other questions from committee? Hearing none, do I have a motion? Or
would-
sorry, I need to do public
I'm sorry.
comment, comments from the public. Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $86,000.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this contract, please signify by saying aye.
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 If no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 19F, professional services agreement between the City of Cheyenne and Rhythm EFX LLC for Cheyenne Depot Plaza Christmas light design and installation project.
Staff report. It's hard to believe we're talking about Christmas lights, but go ahead, Jason.
Mr. Chair, Jason Sanchez, Community Rec and Events, and yes, we're talking Christmas lights. Over the years, our staff has been asked to provide some type of experience, some decorations in the downtown area. We've done the best we can with the residential lights that we have. But we feel like we fall short of the expectations because we are using residential equipment versus commercial grade equipment. So last year we met with the council. We talked about things we could do to improve. The council approved some of the 6 penny downtown improvement funds for us to pursue this quote. So we have quotes and we received one from Rhythm FX in the amount of $127,480.60. And what this does is it creates, and what they propose is creating an immersive experience on the depot in the downtown area. As you know, the city and the chamber work together and many folks to put on the Christmas parade. We work with Visit and they put on a downtown shopping experience for the holidays. And what we try to do is bring people in from out of town to visit Cheyenne, to spend their funds here to help with our revenue. But to also encourage the residents to come downtown, have family pictures, to basically have a really cool setting for the Christmas holiday. That's what this bid includes. It'll include a shock and awe basically on each of the entry points from Lincoln Way, Capitol. There'll be some static decorations for pictures, as well as some decorations that move, their motion lights that'll be synchronized to music, different things like that. So basically this captures what I feel was being asked of our team to create an immersive experience. And so I'll stand for any questions.
Thanks, Jason. Stand by. Noticed also that there's a 3-year warranty with those, so I always look at the warranties on anything. Dr. Aldrich, do you have a question?
I do, Chairman White. Through you, I had several questions on this, Jason. I saw that it looks like they provide a lighting plan to you, and it looks like I was trying to figure out if this will become an annual expense, not the equipment, obviously, since it looks like we're buying that and we're going to have a 3-year warranty on it. But for instance, there's a project manager that we're going to pay $1,800 a day to. There's a boom that lifts 45 feet for $4,500. So it looks like those might be ongoing cost if we were to do this each year. I'm trying to figure out if they're training our employees how to do this, or if this is going to be a continued expense.
Mr. Chair, through you, Dr. Aldridge, it's a great question. What we did is we put in this bid for them to provide that service initially, so we could see how they set everything up to make sure that it works right. Going forward, we will do the setup with our CRE team. We generally have our forestry team, parks team, clean and safe. A number of our employees go out and set this up. But to make sure that we get what we're paying for, what they had envisioned, we ask that they set it up the first time. We'll record and document that, and then we'll do it going forward.
Can I ask about?
Certainly, go
Is
ahead.
it possible, because you said this is an immersive experience, did they provide you with some sort of a video or some sort of visible, some sort of a picture? So it's hard to imagine what this is going to look like from reading the description. So I'm just wondering if we might be able to get some sort of some sort of a video clip or something where they've done this in other communities.
Mr. Chair, through you, in their bid, they do include some pictures of areas that they did in the past, and they have some references. With ours, what it is, once this is approved, we'll get together as stated in their proposal and create what we specifically want in Cheyenne, and then I'll send some of those pictures to you if that'd be all right.
And can we see what they've done in other areas, knowing that that's not exactly what we're getting, but it will give us an idea at least? Because then we don't have any of those pictures or anything in this.
I will forward
document.
that to you.
Okay, the other thing I just say this. I just wanted to say, you guys did an awesome job during Frontier Days. And thank you for all the clean and safe crew, I think, is working really hard. Every time I drive downtown at 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock, they're out there cleaning, working. And I really appreciate their hard work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. And just the last Friday of Frontier Days, the sound crew was down there from 4 a.m. till midnight. They put in a 20-hour day. Any other questions for Jason? Hearing none. Comments from the public? Hearing none. Do I have a motion from the committee?
60 cents.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee?
For 60 cents is what's got.
Thankfully, we're missing him this time around. All those in favor of this professional services agreement, please signify by saying aye.
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 No one's opposed. That item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 19G, development agreement between the city of Cheyenne and True Grit Land Development LLC to outline the responsibilities for public infrastructure improvements for the Harmony Valley subdivision.
Welcome, Mr. Cobb.
Good afternoon, Chairman White and members of the Finance Committee, Tom Cobb, City Engineer. Before you and for your consideration is the development agreement between the City of Cheyenne and True Grit Land Development LLC. The background on this one is, and I'm sorry I didn't bring a slide, but maybe this will illustrate the area. So this is part of the Harmony Valley Improvement Area. There's some drainage that comes on site that's in the cul-de-sac in the corner of the picture that you see in front of you. It's an undersized pipe and there's quite a bit of erosion that comes down. So this agreement basically outlines it's a public-private partnership. This will go into an retention pond that Mr. Ernst will be building with True Grit. And we have public improvements then with that. We're going to make improvements for the capacity of the pipe and also create an outlet that ties into the the College Drive system. Obviously, the development agreement defines those responsibilities. It's approximately about 15.7% for the developer and the remaining is City of Cheyenne. The cost and funding, it will be coming from the 1% sales tax funding from 23 to 26. For our part is $238,289.41. And the private funding will be coming from True Grit Land Development in the total of $43,909.37. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have of me.
Thanks, Mr. Cobb. Stand by. Dr. Aldrich?
Chairman White, through you. So as I was reading this, Tom, I'm just curious as to why, because I'm familiar with this area and I have noticed there's a lot of erosion and literally, I mean, we could lose people's backyards out there down that hillside. I'm just curious as to why the land developer their portion is only $43,909.
Chairman White, through you to Dr. Aldrich. Dr. Aldrich, so this is an existing system that was undersized in place before my time and the developer's time. So that's why we share the burden of the cost because the pipe is undersized. I don't know why, but which has created the erosion between the houses.
And I've noticed that the developer is developing up basically almost to that row of houses where this erosion is occurring further to the west. So I guess I'm just thinking, would we always have had this problem even without that development there eventually? Or is this something that's been brought on by the development of all of that land to the south of that subdivision?
Chairman White, through you to Dr. Aldrich. Dr. Aldrich, the problem is already there. We witnessed it when we started looking at, when he first came to us with the development, he brought this to my attention and we looked at it together. And so to answer your question, yes, the problem existed before the development.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Laybourne?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Mr. Cobb, you mentioned our participation in the funding mechanism. So how much do we have in that drainage fee from that current fifth penny? I think that's what you mentioned.
Chairman White, through you to Councilman Laybourne, Mr. Laybourne, it's now at 1.5 million is for our ask, but it came out of the current fifth penny total. This obviously is 238,000 of it. Yes, sir.
Well, I guess you could say these things happen and then coming up to an undeveloped area, maybe at the time that happened, they didn't understand. Although I'm not clear why. But I just want to point out that this is a substantial amount of money from our drainage fund. And I think that's something we need to pay close attention to these days. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Cobb? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $238,289.41.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this development agreement, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. And we have no other items on our agenda. We are under a severe thunderstorm warning, so please be careful. Have a good day. Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.